we're live. So good evening, good morning, everybody. This is the November 21st SIG Release weekly meeting. I am Adolfo Garcia, or Puerco, and I'm going to be your host today. As a reminder, this call is being recorded to the internet, so if you don't want to be on camera or you don't want your words to be recorded to the public internet, please either shut down your camera or leave the meeting, which we would be really sad to see. This meeting is governed by the CNCF Code of Conduct, so in the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, so please be mindful of whatever you say and do. Before we start, we always like to hear of anybody who's new to SIG Release. We are super happy to have always new people and to hear about their interest in the SIG in Kubernetes. So if anybody who's been here for the first time or wants to introduce themselves for the first time, please, come forward. Yeah, Sujay.
So, hi everyone, I'm Sujay from India, a recent graduate. So currently I'm looking for ways to get involved in different SIGs, and you can mostly find me in contributor comms. And I'm also looking for ways to get involved in different tasks in different SIGs. And SIG release sounds very interesting to me, and that's why I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, welcome. I mean, we're super happy to have you here. Anybody else wants to introduce themselves?
I guess I have not been in this meeting in a while, so I'll introduce myself. Hi, I'm Pushkar Zogrekar. I am the security tooling sub-project lead. I'm also co-chair for Security Tag. I really appreciate all the work all of the SIG release folks do, and very honored to be with you all today.
Yay, welcome. It's I'm super excited because we're gonna do some cool stuff together with Pushkar and SIG Security. Anybody else wants to say hi? Oh, Friedrich.
Hello, yeah, my name is Friedrich. I work for SAP, or SAP as some people like to call it. I am, however, not a representative of SAP right now. I mean, in my private time, I work as a software developer for SAP and a release manager. I work in the Kubernetes field, and I heard that SIG Release needs some volunteers. There's something going on about release promotion, I think is the topic. I currently have about 10 to 20 hours per week I could invest in some open source contribution per week. And I contributed to upstream Kubernetes in the past already, so I'm a little familiar with what to wait. So, hello.
Well, this is exciting. Yeah, we have some work that needs to get done on the image promoter side. So if we get some time at the end of the meeting, we can do like a quick tour and overview of the release of the image promotion process, and yeah, to get you up and running. And if not, we can always do it async or next meeting. So welcome. Anyone else? All right. Okay, cool. And if you want to say hi at any moment or another meeting, it's fine too. All right, so let's move on to the sub-project updates. So first of all, on release engineering, patch releases. Jeremy, you wanted to talk about those?
Yeah, I mean, this kind of falls into the release team too. We are cutting the 129.0 RC0 today. We skipped the beta release, so we're jumping right into the RC. There's a whole lot of things that happen with RC0 around the branch cut. So like there'll be a lot of PRs for folks to take a look at as we walk through some of this. I think Jim is going to pick up the no mock stages. We're done with the mock stage and mock release so far. So now we're on to the real stuff that'll take longer. But hopefully everything looks good so far.
Cool. Any questions, Jeremy, to branch managers?
Nope, I think we're good so far. Just
Okay.
I'll ping folks for reviews on branch cut related PRs.
So next is the update on the OBS packages. Marco, you want to talk about those?
Yeah, that's for me. I left some agenda items. Let me take a look quickly. So the update, the first one is that public-facing docs for packages KTS.io are complete and backported up to v1.24. So whoever uses any version of documentation to install or upgrade Kubernetes, they will be welcome with new packages KTS.io, and they will be able to set up everything so they can consume the latest packages. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we have been made aware that we are missing packages for v1.25.16. I pinged the OBS folks about that. I'm not sure. As far as I have seen, we didn't receive a response so far, but I will ping them again to check if there's anything new. And we are in the process of evaluating next steps and priorities for the OBS work. I'm trying to keep the project board update as much as possible, but we are still to figure out things like how exactly are we going to proceed in the next year. And that's mostly it. Speaking of the OBS stuff, as of this time, there is nothing new. Speaking of action items and help wanted, but as always, if you find anything that might be useful in the project board, I can link it again in the here. So I will leave the link project board. So if anyone wants to take a look, you have a link in the chat, in the document. Yeah, and in the chat now as well.
Yeah, I have a question. So was the 126.16 did get built but did not get published, or what's the problem with that?
Yeah, it got pretty built, and the Debian and RPM packages are available on the OBS infra, but for some reason the synchronization from the OBS infra to our S3 bucket didn't went through, and they're not available via packages KTS.io. But the build is successful, so it is just a matter of this psych fig that is working on. I have to check with the folks, like if they can check why is it not there.
All right. Any questions for Marco or about the OBS packages? All right. So we have a bigger update on the meeting that happened with SIG Security. So maybe perhaps we should move the LFX project update and then take on the larger one. Do you want to talk about that one, Marco? The LFX?
Yes, I just wrote on the chat, by the way, it looks like the issue with 125.16 is fixed. I can see the new packages being available. So yeah. Yeah, so LFX project, we are approaching the end. Next Thursday is considered the last day. So I would like to thank Nitish for all his hard work on that. We didn't manage to finish everything that we planned, and the work with CLI is getting started. But the good thing is that Nitish is just to continue working on this project and to stay with SIG Release and release generic. So I'm very happy to see that, and I think that over time we will be able to finish it, and we will, yeah, we will stay tuned to see a little bit more about that in the future. But so far, I'm pretty happy how it went. We did some pretty basic work when it comes to the library and trying to understand the OBS API. And yeah, I think that part went very well. General, everything went very well.
Oh, nice. Well, congratulations on a successful run on mentoring. I think it was you and Carlos, right?
Yes.
So yeah, thank you for mentoring Nitish, and thanks to Nitish for the great work. Friedrich, you have a raise hand, or is it vestigial? Okay. Oh, so maybe it's just the alert that was left here in my window. All right. So moving. Well, first, any other questions about the LFX program that just ended? Okay, so well, moving on to the supply chain security update. So anyone wants to talk about it, or I can also talk about it and discuss the next steps, since we have PJ here.
Kick us off.
What's that?
You can kick us off if you want.
Oh, okay, yeah. So well, so for context, during KubeCon, Jeremy here led a meeting to discuss improvements on several fronts. Well, the idea is, how can we surface, the central idea was to discuss how ways of surfacing false positives in Kubernetes so that we can inform security scanners how to when those false positives happen. And then from that discussion, we started discussing that, well, maybe we need to put VEX into the mix, VEX, the vulnerability exploitability exchange. And in order to start producing VEX documents, we need to do some improvements to the security feed of Kubernetes and to the SBOMs. And that ended up with some of us visiting the SIG security meeting last week to start discussing those improvements, as some of them may require cross-SIG collaboration and maybe a new KEP and working together with different areas of the project. Also, the SRC needs to be looked into the mix. So after the last meeting, we decided to start working some of the ideas in our meeting and in the security tooling group that PJ leads in SIG security. So yeah, so here we are. So PJ, do you have suggestions to start the discussion? We should probably let folks know how we are building the security feed today, and we can also add some information. We could also add some context from SIG Release on how we handle new CV information from the SRC and how all of this should play better together.
Yeah. So obviously there is a lot of documentation, couple of blogs, KEPs mentioned about the CV feed. So good homework for all of us to read later, but I'll just give some summary quickly. Long time back, people used to rely on Google group email, RSS feed to get to know if when a new CVE was announced by SRC. That feature was dropped by Google, and that basically broke a lot of automation for a lot of end users. Then the request was, can't the community maintain a feed that will be something programmatically accessible? So long story short, we use that as a trigger point to continue to work on something. We merged the alpha version of CVE feed in 125. And the beta was released in 127. These are Kubernetes releases. Today it is available on our kh.io website. You can download it as a JSON feed. It is also available on Markdown. It also has an RSS feed. And as we are going through GA, the LTS work has come up, which has made this more exciting. We're getting a lot of feedback from SRC, some scanners who consume different ways of the CVEs that we release. And that has led to a lot of suggestions that will improve the quality of life, save time for SRC, make the CVE feed more consumable, probably more useful for scanners and also for anything we do in LTS. I think what I wanted to chat today was on the VEX side of things, if we can continue on that. But before we go there, I just want to pause and see if people have questions and anything I can clarify more.
I just had one question generally. Do you think it makes sense for us to start a collaborative like Google Doc where we can address what the state of the world is today and then highlight the things we want to do going forward, and then we can dive into VEX in that document and call out what we want to do there. We can call out enhancements that are needed to the SBOMs, and then that can serve as a basis for a roadmap and can serve as a basis for whatever KEPs we need to come out of this, and can shape conversations going forward. Like, is that a thing we want to start like soonish? Because I can start a doc and I can share it with everybody, and then we can kind of brain dump into it and massage it from there. This topic totally came up in the LTS meeting this morning.
Yeah.
How do we
Okay.
handle all the CVEs and the false positive things for branches that are around longer? So I think it's relevant across a lot of different spaces.
Yeah. Okay. I think document is great. We should definitely do that. I was hoping to discuss more today and also in tomorrow's security tooling meeting. And then we can't be in all meetings at all times at once. So this document will be really nice. So we can all have the same set of context shared across everyone. So let's do that. We can continue the discussion more tomorrow as well. Looks like Purko shared some document already.
Oh, cool.
Is that the one for this topic or something else? Let's see.
Yeah, exactly. I just
Started a doc.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see.
For us to start adding, especially if we can start scaffolding the ideas we're going to discuss, it's great. So yeah, starting with the state of the world. Another interesting thing to mention there is that the information where the feed originates starts within the SRC, and then they take that information and they create issues from it where the feed starts. But we also have another internal YAML document that we use to add the security information to the release notes in Kubernetes. So I think there's a good opportunity on making all of those processes play well along, and then we could still start consuming the same information and created only once.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing I wanted to clarify, I think some folks might have been in security meeting, but for everybody else, we as in like the overall community typically deals with two types of CVEs. One type of CVE is published by SRC that directly affects the Kubernetes code that is released, and then patches are developed based on that. Most of the times they're also cherry picked. That's one type where we have high confidence that it actually impacts people who use Kubernetes. The other type of CVE, which is much noisy, we get a lot of requests about it to SRC, and people also come out of nowhere, add comments saying like, when are we fixing this CVE and stuff like that. Those type of CVEs are the ones that are either part of the container image that the components actually are published as, or they're part of Go modules dependencies that we actually consume when we're building Kubernetes. So for the second one, I feel the using Vex will make a lot of sense, and it will be very easy for scanners to consume as well. And for the first one, we probably are okay with the way we are, except the piece where SRC has to do a lot of repeat work, like you said, YAML files and the markdown and an email and an issue. All of that can be made better for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And for a Vex consumption, I think the second piece of type of issues would probably make more sense. And I wanted to just talk on that more if we have time.
Yeah, let's dive into that.
Yeah, okay. So the second one today, how I've seen we use this. So one more thing that the tooling subproject does is we have CVE scanners running for container images and Go modules every 6 months, 6 hours every day. So 4 times a day. And today it runs Sneak. We very recently merged Go One Check as well. So for any new PRs, if you run the verify job, it will run the Go One Check on that particular PR branch. And if there is a delta between the main branch and the PR branch, then you would know like, okay, you're adding something that probably needs to be looked at. There is another issue open where I think somebody has assigned it to themselves to do this for all the release branches as well, where it will be a periodic job and Go One Check will run on all the release branches. So that's some context. And today in general, when a CV like in a Go module shows up, what happens is typically the folks who are in the Kubernetes code organization group will jump in and say this does not impact Kubernetes because the vulnerable code is not called by Kubernetes. And that's typically consistent pattern we have seen added as a comment on that issue. And then we also have a cherry pick update in terms of guidance where we are not going to cherry pick to silence the scanners. And that is a good thing we have officially made uh, clear. So what I was hoping is to keep maintainer burden low as possible. If there is a way to use that comment with maybe an additional label, which will trigger some sort of a job that creates a Vex document which says for this CV, Kubernetes maintainers say this is not impacting us. I think that would probably be the most intuitive and clear, concise way to have a trail of trust in some ways of who is saying what, and then the automating of Vex document will probably be easier as well. So just an idea I wanted to throw out and get some thoughts on, especially from folks who work on Vex much more than me, because this might not be how Vex is supposed to work, and I could be wrong.
No, it is absolutely, and it's one of the big questions that we are starting to tackle on the OpenVex project. On if you have, how do you control the custody of statements, and who should be able to say what. So right now, the initial trust model that you're about to start seeing in Vex documents is what I call the last mile of trust in documents. Basically, it's just a signed document, and whoever signs it lets you know that, okay, I, the signer of this document, vouch for all of the statements but you don't really have any certainty on where they came from. And the next generation trust model is going to be able to tell you, and especially guarantee, if all parties that had a say in that Vex history were authorized. And the other one is making sure that statements are in the order and no statements were added or removed from the history. So but that's next level. But for now, it's just one statement, and you trust whoever handed you the document.
Okay, that's actually perfect. And the one thing I missed saying is when we create the new label, I'm kind of proposing right now, we have an ability in the current way labels are used to limit who can add that label. So we do that for official CV feed label. If we create a new label and do the same, and let's say only uh, the main owners on the KK are allowed to add that label, or Kubernetes code.org people who are under a Kubernetes group and the membership is very tightly controlled, that will give us more trust in terms of not somebody randomly cannot just add that label and then just claim that this doesn't affect Kubernetes. So that is something which would also improve the trust in what we are going to generate.
Yeah, it would be, if we could get the same we have, criteria for for example, 2-person reviews, it would be awesome if we could create a system where more than one, expert on the affected part of Kubernetes could sign off on the assessment and says, this is not affected. And a second person can come in and say, yeah, I also want to add my name and it's not affected. That would really give you some trust on how it works. We can bootstrap the Vex flow of information with much simpler documents than that. But it's a good thing to think for in the future.
I see. Yeah, that's a good idea. I know Nikita has added in TOC thumbs up based voting, like thumbs up emoji based voting. We could do something like if one of the people adds that comment, somebody else just does a thumbs up. That's just confirming that this is valid. And that again is very less burden for maintainers, which should be one of the top priorities, I feel. And then maybe that covers what you said, Pirko.
Okay. And yeah, so the way I see it, there are 2 Vex flows that need to converge in one single flow Vex statements. There are the Vex information generated from Kubernetes itself. So the CVEs that Kubernetes as a numbering authority issues by on behalf of the project. And there are also the assessments on the third-party modules and the base images. So we have tooling to merge all of those into one single flow. So that should not be a problem. I think the bigger question is on how do we do the implementation, right? Like how do we get and automate all of this?
Yeah, agree. Sorry, I need to drop, but let's continue this tomorrow. If folks can join 8 a.m. Pacific, there is a SIG security tooling meeting. So I'll be there for sure. We can continue that there. But if not, we have the document and we can keep adding more stuff there.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, PJ.
All right, cool. Thanks, everyone. Nice to chat with you today.
I've been taking a bunch of notes as we've been talking. I'll put them into that doc that you started, so we have it for tomorrow.
Yeah, I was trying to keep notes, but I'm terrible. Like translating and translating to here and translating to right.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, I need a CPU upgrade. So before we, I don't know, talk a little bit more about this, does anybody have any questions on what was just said for folks who may not be familiar with Vex or the several information documents and feeds of Kubernetes? Perhaps if there's any questions, maybe we can do like a pause and then.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand what is the final artifact that we want to create and like who it will affect.
So specifically for Vex, what we want to get going is a Vex document or a Vex feed, a series of documents. So you can have like one big document that we append or several documents, and all of those can be consumed by security scanners. And so the scanners read those documents and say, okay, that vulnerability I just found in one of the Kubernetes images doesn't really apply, so I'll just suppress it from the output.
I dropped 2 links in the chat, Grace. One to the OpenVex spec, and then a link to an example of scanner support for that. Trivi's got experimental support for CycloneDX and for OpenVex.
There's also the support in right here. That's already merged.
Oh, cool. I didn't see that was merged. And then I linked a tool from the OpenVex community called VexCTL.
I think there's a few new folks here. So for people unfamiliar, the SRC is the Security Response Committee.
Correct.
So there is the conversation about streamlining the SRC's work. What does that look like? Like how does that work?
Yeah, I think for that one, we currently, I think as Delphi mentioned, they have a few different pieces of truth that make up the work that they do. One, they receive reports and then they do some triage and work with SIGs to identify if those are real problems or not and identify fixes. And they publish those things under an embargo via email to a distributors list. So folks like Google or AWS or Azure or other distributors of Kubernetes can get access to these things and fix them first. That's in the form of like a Git patch and some real high level data about what's coming out of that. Also, there's a file that they have to create for the release process so that the information about that goes into the release notes. There's also issues that get created that feed the official CVE feed. So that's based off of a label that gets applied to the GitHub issues. Then there's also data that has to go to the vulnerability databases, like externally to Kubernetes as a numbering authority for CVEs. Like they publish that data in a format that I think MITRE defines, that goes out. So I think one of the things we've been talking about in the context of this is maybe making a common set of data or a common feed internally that we can then transform or feed into these other workflows. So maybe something like OSV, open source vulnerability spec, which is here. Drop a link to that in the chat. That maybe has more information than any one of those other places needs, and then we can use that as the common source of data that gets transformed into stuff that goes to the vulnerability databases, stuff that might feed into the VEX documents, things that might feed into the CVE feed itself. Having that one piece of centralized data that we can then pull from to eliminate some of the duplicative manual work right now.
Yeah, just to add to that, OSV, the OSV schema for information exchange is open source, and it's incubating in the OpenSSF, the Open Source Security Foundation, the same working group as OpenVex. And they have some tooling to work and build those documents and to read them, so we can, make use of those if we want to base the new Kubernetes security feed based on OSV, which I think we should do. It's like it's a pretty flexible and modern way of interchanging this kind of data. And yeah, so here in SIG Release, the part we care about is, well, if we can build or use any of our existing tooling to help out in this effort, it's great. But we also need to ensure that we are consuming that data as it flows in our part of, that supply chain flow. So in an ideal world, probably the SRC would, once they determine that CVE, like it's real and it affects Kubernetes, they should create one single document, and from that document they can automate the generation of those YAML files for the security databases. We can also distill the information we need for the release notes, and then we can start working on derivative documents like VEX and others. But yeah, I think we need to, probably we need to, perhaps this is a good point to time box this topic and then continue tomorrow. So if anyone wants or is interested in continuing the discussion, tomorrow during the SIG security tooling meeting, we're going to continue that. So, or if anybody has, if anybody has something else to add.
Sorry, I just joined. I had a conflict. Was there any questions for SRC?
I don't think there are any questions yet. Adolfo started a document that we can start collaboratively dumping information into. We discussed with Pushkar a little bit about what the OSV feed might look like and some ways that we might be able to handle generating that. We're going to transpose that into that document to have it as a place to start iterating through some of this. We're going to discuss it more tomorrow at the SIG security tooling meeting, and then we can go from there asynchronously. So we identified like the three major areas of things that we needed to do kind of in parallel. One is thinking about what the VEX stuff might look like. One is how do we streamline the work that y'all do? Do we make an OSV feed that we can feed into these other pieces? And then I think the third thing we didn't really talk about is we probably need to make changes to our SBOM to be able to better support the VEX document as like a precursor. So we're going to put all of that into this Google Doc. We'll use that as our collaborative place until we get to the point where we think that it's ready to turn into KEPs or into just GitHub issues that we can open up and use that as our collaboration point.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll I don't know, get it in a better shape for tomorrow's meeting, but it's just a lump of today's thoughts. All right. Okay, let me go back to the notes.
And we were time boxing it so we could get to other stuff. There's other things to cover today.
Okay, so moving on to the release team update.
Yeah, I think I had the first agenda item on here and then the third one as well. So first one is the comms for the subteam changes, which I added this to the agenda last week, but then sent it to the SIG leads. And I think I've got a thumbs up from all the SIG leads, so I'm not sure that there's much we need to discuss here. I had it on the meeting just to make sure that like, so I will send it today, but I wanted to make sure we were all good at the meeting before doing so. And yeah, good call out, Adolfo. I will change the signature at the end to reflect that this is coming from the SIG rather than just Grace and I individually.
I mean,
yeah,
you can still sign it, you and Grace, on behalf of SIG Release, of course.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, but you folks feel free to have a look at that. Last chance for comments. It's gonna go out today. Should I send it to KDev or just the SIG Release mailing list?
I'd send it to both.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds good. And then let's see. It looks like Grace, did you add the topic for the removal process docs?
Yeah, that was me. Got some reviews from Leo and Nina that I haven't addressed yet, but yeah, would be good to get some eyes on there. I'm hoping to close it before 1:30 start.
Cool. And then lastly, I suppose I should put a link to this project board that I'm talking about. One of the things that we talked about at the session at KubeCon was, you know, there's some of these like long running action items on the release team, and I think people don't always feel empowered to help out there if they're not on the release team currently. But like, we do have these kind of long running things that like aren't necessarily tied to or bound to a release cycle, that are just improvements that can be made to the team's process, that like folks that have previously served on the team and maybe are not on anymore but still want to contribute, it's like a great way for them to stay involved. And we've been tracking these items in the past just in the retro docs, which is great. But I know for me, like I probably have items in these docs that are like assigned to me that like I don't keep track of Google Docs links. So let me see if I can do, can someone grant me screen share perms real quick?
Yeah, Adolfo, you'll have to do that since you're host. Easiest thing to do is just make him a co-host.
Cool. So here is a board that I created on it's a project board under the Kubernetes org. I don't have permission to make it public, but I do have permission to add folks to it. So I think initially I added like myself, Grace, Kat, and Priyanka as admins on the board, and then added the SIG Release GitHub team as viewers. So yeah, I'm hoping to just use this board in the future to capture action items that come out of the retros, that we can then track and assign to people as needed. I've already used it for these comms and retro scheduling and stuff. So yeah, if there's anything in particular that anyone would like to see alongside this, feel free to let me know. But it was something that we talked about at KubeCon that I think we would benefit from. So that's what I got.
Xander, should we, there's like at the end of the release team template, we always like have that part where we go over the board and we never do. Is this like the new board we should switch over to?
I think that would be a great thing to do.
Yeah, I think so. And this is, yeah, just stuff that's particularly tied to like release team processes, and yeah.
All right. Hopefully we'll get it filled with some cool stuff as we wind down this release. All right. Any questions for Sander about the new project board? Yeah, at some points we should make it public, but yeah, that while we start using it, it's fine to have it like that. Okay, all right. I mean, we are at time, so if anybody wants to drop, thank you, and we'll see you next Tuesday or tomorrow on the security tooling mailing list. We have two last ones. So the next one is from me, very short one. As we mentioned last week, we're starting up this event called the Cloud Native Security Slam, where contributors can sign up to help come in and secure the overall security posture in the smaller projects of Kubernetes. This is just a call to review the communication that's going to go out to dev at Kubernetes, calling for projects to sign up to receive help from the contributors that sign up to the event. Just take a look. I know it's kind of rushed because it's like end of the year and all of that, so we're trying to make it as fast as we can, but please take a look at the document. If you have any comments or suggestions, let me know today. My goal is to end it tomorrow by end of day to dev at Kubernetes. But yeah, and then the last one, Jeremy, do you want to talk about that one, or do you want to table it?
No, I can mention it real quick. So Jordan had come to a SIG release meeting prior to KubeCon sometime to talk about data that he'd collected around regressions. And a lot of the data showed pretty clearly that backporting things led to other regressions, like the fixes that came in. And during the LTS meeting today, we discussed just generally, is the current cherry pick process too liberal? Do we allow too many things to be cherry picked back? Because the guidance isn't really clear today. We don't have really strict criteria. We kind of defer to the SIG leads and the folks that are reviewing them. And then when we were reviewing cherry picks, we're kind of just, making sure that people have opened them across all of the release branches. And maybe that doesn't make sense either. And we don't really have a good checklist to say, like, is this a security fix or is this fixing a regression? We take a lot of bug fixes back to other releases, it seems like, from the data. So there was just a general discussion today about whether it made sense for us to rethink or to maybe start a discussion about changing the cherry pick policy to be a little bit more restrictive in the things that we bring back to other branches. Like, that would have a benefit for, if we do LTS later on, it would have a benefit for those supported release branches because we'll be more restrictive in the things we bring back and potentially introduce less regressions into things. So I guess the topic to discuss here, is that something we feel like we want to start as a discussion? Kind of, we own it because we're doing we reprove cherry picks and stuff. Kind of, it's a community decision about what we want to do. So kind of figuring out the balance there. If we think that's something that's worth discussing, I'm happy to open an issue and send an email to KDev today to start having folks chime in on it.
Yeah. So yeah, I would like to chat about our guidelines, right? Because our guidelines are mostly geared towards a higher level review of the kind of change that we're allowing. So we basically take a look, and we have some categories of things that we allow to be cherry picked, but I would like to hear what the suggestions are on how to make it more restrictive without considering that the release managers don't really have that deep knowledge of some of the areas of the project that may.
Yeah, I think the suggestion from Jordan was, like, maybe we just update the cherry pick PR template to have like a checkbox where people have to attest that it's one of a few things, because we don't, like, we'll today, like, we'll look at something and like, oh, that looks kind of like a feature is being backported, and we will say no to those. But I think in general, we don't apply a lot of other restrictions to things because we don't have that context. We don't know all the pieces. So like maybe just starting with more self-attestation from the folks that are approving these things or opening them, like that it is truly one of these small set of things would be a good start. But like identifying what that small set of things is, what we're okay with doing, I think is the starting point of discussion.
Okay. Yeah. So do you have another LTS meeting between now and our next meeting?
No, the next LTS meeting is the 5th. I think they're bi-weekly.
Okay. All right. But I mean, we can add it to the agenda next week and, you know, get together some ideas. Right. Anything more to add on that? Or
that was it for me.
Yeah. Any questions or whatever?
But on our scroll back, we talked with Friedrich a little bit about image promoter stuff. Would it be beneficial for me to schedule maybe dedicated meeting to talk about image promoter stuff? There's a couple of threads in Slack where like Sasha created a Miro to identify kind of the flow of things, and we've had a couple of discussions. Would it make sense to spend like a 30-minute dedicated session to talk about that?
Works for me. If you have any resources in the Slack,
okay, yeah, I can at you and
exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, Jeremy, if you have a meeting, it'd be good to have a recording of that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, yeah, maybe. I mean, if you want to do it later this week, or we can also spend some time on the next meeting.
Later this week won't work for me, but next week.
Okay.
Sorry, one small thing, do you have like a place we keep a recording? Because I remember Marco had like an OBS recording that I've been meaning to watch, but he recorded that, I think.
Yes, if we use the SIG release meetings, they will get recorded
and uploaded.
Perhaps uploaded. There is like there's better automation in the works. I don't think we've onboarded the SIG release stuff to that, but we definitely can grab the cloud recordings and then upload them to YouTube, which I think would be the best thing to do. I think the SIG release leads have to grab those things. Yeah, Kat, the time zone math is wrong in the document. The calendar invite was created in US time, not in UTC time, and it's daylight savings messing with things. So we should update either the invite or the doc. But Grace, I'll look and see. Marco, do you know if you recorded that with the SIG release meeting or was that with your own Zoom?
The OBS thing, I think it was the SIG release.
Okay, I can take a look through the recordings and see if I can find it, and then if I can find it, I'll download it and upload it to YouTube if it's not there already. The new automation they have is pretty cool. It'll just do it, but it's based off of title of the meeting, so you've got to title it a certain way because that's what it'll create into YouTube. We did it for the LTS meetings. I'm actually not sure if it's still working. I think it might have broken because I haven't seen the LTS meetings, but the upload of YouTube videos automatically is a constant struggle. The automation there could be better.
The LF has some cool automation also built that they inherited to the OpenSSF. So if they need help. Okay.
Good idea.
Well, I think that was it. So if you're interested in participating, by the way, there's going to be some cool swag handed out to the participants of the Security Slam. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say it, but it's going to be like a very cool hoodie. So if anybody wants to sign up to that, either to help, you're going to get the swag, or as a contributor, you're also going to get it. So take a look at the doc. And yeah, with that, unless there's anything else before we go, have a good rest of the week, everybody, and see you tomorrow or next Tuesday.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.